Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's session, we will look at some commonly asked interview questions from your AWS security perspective. So from identity management to compliance monitoring, these questions will cover all the critical aspects of your AWS security. It may be protecting data in transit or dealing with DDoS attacks. We will be covering everything. So whether you're preparing for an interview or you're just looking to enhance your skills from AWS security perspective, then this video is just for you. So let's get started with this. The first question we have is, what is AWS Identity and Access Management, also known as IAM, and why is it important? So IAM, or Identity and Access Management, now that's AWS's backbone for securely managing access to your AWS resources. By using this, we can create user groups, we can create users, we can create roles, we can define the permissions with policies and all those things. So basically, we can control who can access your AWS services and your AWS resources. Um, Now, the most important usage of this service is to ensure you are giving fine-grained access control, and this can help you to enhance the security of your AWS accounts. So, IAM helps you to enforce the principle of least privilege. What by that we mean, you're only granting the permissions needed to perform the tasks. We won't be granting any other permissions. The next question we have is, what is the principle of least privilege and how does AWS implement it? So like I said, the principle of least privilege, this ensures that the users and the services are only granted the permissions that they need. So basically, the minimum permissions will be granted. Now, this can be achieved by making use of IAM policies, service control policies, also known as SCPs, and permission boundaries. Now, this approach will help you to minimize security risks by restricting any unnecessary access. So, you're only giving the bare minimum access that is needed for the user to do their job. The next question we have is, how does AWS secure data in transit and at rest? So your data in transit is encrypted using SSL or TLS protocols. For your data at rest, AWS offers multiple encryption options. So we have SSE for S3, which is your S3 buckets. Then you have EBS encryptions for EBS volumes, KMS keys for database, and custom encryptions. So with your S3, you have multiple options. You can also make use of your KMS to create your own keys and then secure your data on disk. You can make use of these KMS keys to encrypt your EBS volumes as well as your RDS databases. The next question we have is, what are AWS Key Management Service and its use cases? So like I said, KMS, it also stands for Key Management Service. Now this is AWS centralized encryption key service. So we can use this service to create encryption keys, manage the encryption keys, and also control our encryption keys. Now this is commonly used to encrypt your data. It can be your S3 data, EBS volumes, RDS databases, anything. Now, its ability to integrate with AWS services makes it an essential tool for securing your data. So, whenever we talk about encrypting your data, KMS is what we use because KMS can be easily integrated with any other services in AWS. The next question we have is, how does AWS handle DDoS attacks? So for this, AWS provides multiple layers of protections. So we have AWS Shield. Under this, you get the standard and the paid version. So standard is free, and the advanced you'll have to pay money. So using this, you can protect against distributed denial of service attacks. So DDoS, it stands for distributed denial of service attacks. So we can avoid that. You can also pair this with CloudFront. As well as your Route 53 service, and these tools can help you create a robust shield against high volume attacks. So using CloudFront, we can enable caching, we can have geo restrictions to mitigate any attacks. We can also use Route 53 to basically avoid any attack mitigations. All those things can be done. The next question we have is, what is AWS Security Hub and how does it help? Your AWS Security Hub, now that's a centralized view. It's a unified view that can be used to monitor and assess your AWS security posture. Basically, it's like a centralized hub where you can see all of your security activities. So this mainly helps us to aggregate all of our security alerts, uh, do any compliance checks, and also get insights across your AWS account. So if you have multiple accounts, you can get insights into those accounts. You can check for any compliance issues. You can check your security alerts. All those things can be monitored and assessed from one single point, which is your security hub. The next question we have is, how do you secure an S3 bucket? So to secure an S3 bucket, we can enable bucket policies. We can also make use of IAM policies for more controlled access. So at the bucket level, you can make use of your bucket policies. You can also make use of your IAM policy, which can be used to control the access to your S3 bucket. We can also enable bucket versioning, like if you want to avoid accidental deletion of your data. And we can also make use of server-side encryption to encrypt our data, which is for mainly for your data security. Then we can make use of block public access, which can be used to block accidental public access. So if you don't want to make your bucket public, you can make use of these settings. And you can also make use of cloud trial and S3 access logs to log your activities and start auditing your activities by making use of this log information that will be stored within cloud trial and your S3 access logs. The next question we have is, what are AWS organizations and how do they enhance security? So AWS organization is a service provided by AWS, and we can use this to manage multiple AWS accounts. So whenever we have multiple accounts, multiple AWS accounts, and if you want to centrally manage these multiple AWS accounts, we can make use of your AWS organizations. Now, this mainly helps us to enhance our security. So we can make use of your service control policies to enforce organization-wide restrictions and also manage your billing transparently. So by making use of AWS organizations, you'll get a centralized billing for multiple AWS accounts. And you can also control the permissions across these accounts by making use of your service control policies. The next question we have is, what is AWS WAF and how does it work? So WAF, it stands for Web Application Firewall, and this is also a security firewall that can be used to protect your web applications from common threats. Now these common threats can be your SQL injections, XSS. So if you want to protect your web applications, we can make use of your WAF for that. Now to work with this, you will begin with creating rules. Now these rules can be to allow traffic, block traffic, or monitor your traffic. And you can define these rules based on conditions. So conditions could be like, you want to block your traffic from certain IPs, or you want to block certain query strings, or any headers, or you want to allow certain headers. You can define all those rules in your WAF, and it will start acting as a firewall for your web application. The next question we have is, what is Amazon GuardDuty? So GuardDuty is another security service that you have in AWS, and this is mainly a threat detection service which helps you to monitor any malicious activity that might be happening and also deliver detailed security findings. Okay, so we can use this service to check if there are any compromised AWS accounts, or there's any unusual API activity that is happening, or there's any unauthorized data access to your accounts. All those things can be managed by making use of your GuardDuty. So this is mainly to check all the activities that's happening with your AWS account, and if there are any compromised accounts, very unusual API calls, like too many API calls happening, all those things can be monitored by making use of your GuardDuty service. The next question we have is, how do you ensure compliance with AWS? So for this, we can make use of tools like AWS config. So AWS provides this tool, and we can use this to keep a track of our compliance, resource compliance with some predefined rules. So we'll be defining rules for this. So you can again conduct regular audits using services like Security Hub and AWS Artifact. You can also enable logging and monitoring by making use of your Cloud Trial and CloudWatch service. That way, you can ensure compliance for your AWS accounts. You can artifact for documentation. You can do a continuous assessments, and all those things can be done. The next question we have is, what is the difference between security groups and NACLs? Now, security groups and NACLs both are your firewalls that we have in VPC. A security groups, it acts at the instance level. So this is basically we attach them to your EC2 instances, and these are stateful, meaning your outbound traffic, your return traffic is automatically allowed. So we basically define rules only for your inbound. Outbound, all the traffic is allowed automatically. So that's why it is stateful. Now, NACLs, on the other hand, they operate at the subnet level, and these are stateless, meaning we will have to explicitly define our inbound rules as well as your outbound rules. So if you don't define your inbound and outbound rules, your traffic won't flow properly and you will get connection errors. Unlike your security groups where your outbound traffic is allowed automatically. The next question we have is, what are IAM roles and how are they different from users? So IAM roles and IAM users can be used to give necessary access. Now IAM roles are temporary access that we give. These are your temporary access permissions for your AWS resources. So under this, basically what happens is temporary credentials will be generated, and once the work is done, those credentials will be gone. Now IAM users, on the other hand, are permanent users with permanent credentials. So until you don't delete those credentials or the resources would be there. And roles are assumed temporarily. So as a user, you can assume the role and you can get some elevated permissions, but it's temporary. It's not permanent access that you get. And under this, it's a temporary access that is being provided. So IAM roles are temporary access with temporary credentials. IAM users are permanent credentials, and the users would be there as long as you don't delete them, and your roles are assumed by users. The next question we have is, how do you monitor security in AWS? So for that, we can make use of tools like Cloud Trial, which can be used for logging any API activity that is happening in your AWS account. We can also leverage AWS config service to compliance monitoring. So you can monitor your compliance activities and all those things. And then we can also employ Amazon Detective service for analyzing and investigating any threats that's happening at your AWS account level. So we can make use of all these tools, all these services to secure our AWS account. The next question we have is, how do you secure RDS databases in AWS? So RDS is a database service that is provided by AWS. So one option we have is we can make use of encryption at rest by making use of the KMS keys. We can also make use of VPC security groups to control your inbound and outbound traffic to the database instance. We can disable public access unless required and make use of SSL and TLS connections. And then we can enable RDS backups for any data recovery in case something goes wrong and we need to restore the database. Then we can make use of the backups to restore the database and create a new database. So we make sure we enable encryption. We have necessary firewalls that controls your inbound and outbound traffic. We have disabled public access. We have enabled SSL or TLS connections, and we have enabled backups. And that brings us to the end of our some of the commonly asked questions for your AWS security interview. These questions, like I said, will help you to better prepare for your interview from a security perspective. So, be it your IAM, be it your security hub, organization service, or anything. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more AWS and cloud computing content. Let me know in the comments if there's a topic that you would like me to cover next. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.